Hello, welcome to Basics of Immigration, Removal Overview. Today we are going to talk about removing non-citizen aliens from the United States, or at least removal proceedings. This is a vast, huge topic. Thousands of attorneys, hundreds of thousands of non-citizen aliens, and other government entities are involved in this process. It's complex, it's controversial, it's scary, it's a lot of things. We're not going to go into everything, but I want you to understand just some basics to help you know what's happening when you hear conversations about this, or maybe when you meet people who are going through this process. First of all, what we're not going to talk about. It's very common for people to still use this term, deportation or deport. This used to be what legally happened to people in the United States. They got deported. Guess what? In 1996, last century, 30 years ago now, Congress changed the law and we don't deport people anymore. Hey, who knew? A lot of people don't seem to know. As someone who's a specialist in the field, I cringe a little when people who are also specialists use this term. I know that it's commonly used, but it's actually inaccurate. So the first thing you can learn today to feel knowledgeable is that we are talking about removal. Today, we remove non-citizen aliens from the United States. There is a ton of legal background about what the difference is. The end result is that we remove people. So we're going to talk about removal proceedings today. So let's just start chronologically. We have a person, a non-citizen alien, who the United States thinks needs to be removed from the United States. Now, I'm going to mention this person could be, here's the US, always our US territory. They could be at the port of entry. They could be in the United States. They could have come yesterday. They could have lived here for 30 years. It doesn't matter. They are in the United States. But you can't remove someone who's not in the United States. So obviously they need to be in the United States. So we have someone in the United States that the government thinks needs to be removed from the United States. What happens? This is going to be the immigration court. This is the official abbreviation. We won't worry about it too much today. Just know that it's an immigration court. All right. First of all, the government tells them, they tell the alien, you need to appear in court. There are a few different things that happen in court. It has multiple processes, just like most court proceedings. The first one is called the master calendar, where the alien goes, the government says, this is why we think you should be removed. The alien says whatever they say in response, whatever defense they have or anything else. And then they make an appointment for what's called an individual hearing, where they get into more details about their particular case. That's not so super important today. Just helpful to know there are two parts for in case you're actually talking to someone and it goes on and on. There is lots of delay often in these courts, so it can be over several months to a few years to many, many years in some particular situations. But we won't worry too much about that today. So first of all, they get told, appear. And we're going to assume they appear. If they don't appear, then it's just a default judgment against them. They're ordered removed. If they do appear, then here's what happens. We have the alien here. They may potentially have an attorney. They have the right to have an attorney. So they're here. Then we have the government here. The government attorney. And we have the immigration judge. So the immigration judge is hearing the case, like a judge always does. The government attorney is going to present evidence to show why this person does not belong in the country, and this person's going to respond. In removal proceedings, there's only one real thing that we're trying to decide, which is this: should this person be removed? This is not a criminal court. There are other criminal proceedings for immigration-related things, but we're not here to decide criminal. We are here to decide, should this person be removed? So we need to decide if they are a U.S. citizen or not. If they are a U.S. citizen, we can't remove them. Even though I'm sure we would like to remove some, that's not the thing. Are they a U.S. citizen? If not, then we look to see, is there something that would make them removable. You can watch the other segment that I have about inadmissibility to see some of the things that would make someone removable. So the government would present evidence, the alien would present evidence, and they look to see, are they removable? Then, even if they are removable, we look to see, can they stay anyway? Now, that's a really informal, non-legal term, of course, but here's the basic idea. Let's say that we have someone and it turns out, yes, they are removable, but they are eligible for a waiver that Congress has created. So then they would look to see if they could prove that they are eligible for that waiver, and the IJ would decide if they would give that waiver or not. Or maybe they say, yes, I'm removable, but I want to claim asylum, something to say, I would be persecuted in my own home country, so please don't send me away, even if I am removable. So there's all this that goes on in court, and this is why it can take a long time as they present evidence of these different things. It can take a long time in hours in the day, but also over the months and years, potentially can take a while to prove all of these things. If at the end the government says they're not a US citizen, they are removable, they don't get any of the defenses, then they're actually going to be removed. And at that point, a couple of things could happen. They may just have an order of removal and say leave, or potentially the government will confine them and take them and actually remove them from the country, usually on a plane. That's the basic concept of if they go to immigration court. That's what happens. There are a few other ways that people can be removed. There are some procedures that can happen right at the port of entry. If they get caught at the port of entry or on the border where it's not a port of entry, and they have no kind of status to come into the country, then CBP, which is a government entity, can actually remove them from there in proceeding. Basically the same concept. Are they a US citizen? Are they removable under specific things like trying to migrate without a visa? Are they removable? Are they a US citizen? Do they have any kind of defense? And if not, then they can remove them right there without ever going to court. That is an option if they are right there on the border or at the port of entry. They can be removed. So they can be removed that way, or they can be removed this way. This person, like I said, could be at a port of entry or on the border. They could be in the United States, this process of immigration court right here. So there are two different types of ways for people to be removed. And again, there are lots of different nuances within this. I guess one thing I will just mention, like most legal proceedings, even if they're ordered removed, let me put that this is an order. They could be removed. They could be told to leave. They could also appeal to another court. They could appeal that process, and different things would happen at that appeal, and then either they would get to stay or they would go back to being removed. So that's another thing that sometimes you'll hear people talk about. You might know people, if you work with immigrants at all, you might know people who are in this process of it being appealed. One thing that I find is many times immigrants themselves don't know exactly how this process works and what's going on. They have attorneys that tell them when to show up and what to bring, and you can stay in the country for now, or you need to leave in 30 days or whatever. They don't necessarily know the nuances. That makes sense. Most of us don't know the nuances when we're in a legal proceeding. That's why we rely on other people to tell us what we need to do and what the outcome is for us. So if you have friends, they probably aren't going to know, even in this basic terminology, much less in the complex legal aspects, what's going on. And I think this is about it for the basics. It gets so much more complicated, but these are the basic concepts to understand. One thing I just want to reiterate is not a criminal proceeding. This is not a criminal proceeding. And sometimes they will even pause this proceeding so that criminal proceedings can continue. That criminal court often intersects with removal, but it is totally different processes. They're different judges, they're different courts, they're different laws, they are different things. And that's an important thing to understand as well. But it's important to recognize this is not criminal court, not the same thing, whole different process. I think that's enough for today. If you have questions, let me know, and I'll do the best I can to answer them.